Well, as we mentioned, some of those titles were mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. And others, that's all I'm going to give you for now. All right? Inshallah, you can read about this. I myself have a course on Ulum al-Quran, a full online course. You can check it out on HadithDisciple.com. And anybody else can check it out. I'm not just saying it just because it's mine, promoting it, but I'm just referring you back to a source that I know about. And in that course, alhamdulillah, if you sign up for that course, that's an exclusive course. It's not on YouTube. And we have many, many other lectures and courses on HadithDiscipleshop.com that are exclusive for exclusive people. Brothers who are serious and they want the exclusive knowledge is there. And in that course, in the beginning of that course, I mentioned several sources in Arabic and in English for this discipline, Ulum al-Quran, the sciences of the Quran, the academic study of the Quran. So there's several books that you can find, of course, in Arabic, and there are several books even in English. It's not just, it's in English. Of course, it's not the same as Arabic, but it's a wealth of knowledge available in English that discusses the sciences of the Quran and the academic study of the Quran. I would advise you to go back to those books if you're truly a truth seeker. And Allah knows best. Type any other questions from the brothers? All right, let's see if we have anything from online. First question is coming from A.N. Could somebody volunteer to read the questions, please? If you really don't mind. My setup is a little different right now. You got him? Wahida? I'm going to tell you no, but then ask you for son, right? That's the son of Adam. Sheikh Naeem. That's what? It's the son of Adam. I can't give you, but I want. Yeah, Fadl. Jazakallah khairan.
Hey, Noor, in Washington, D.C., is someone considered kafir if you have already told them music is wrong, but they disagree and say it's permissible?
Well, fikum barakallah. Somebody a kafir if they say that music, or if they've been told that music's haram, and they say no, it's not, and they can keep listening to it, etc. No, they're not a kafir. A kafir, there are different types of kufr, of course, just like there are different avenues of takfir. A Muslim could be deemed a kafir and apostate through an action, not a statement. They can become a kafir, they can leave Islam because of something they believe in their heart, a doubt, something that they refuse to say, etc. And that this type of kufr, this type of takfir, is going to be when something is just well known from the deen, irrefutable, agreed upon, clear. No one in his right state of mind is going to deny that. And music is not from that perspective. Whether it's haram, whether it's not haram, but it isn't making 5 daily prayers. Hajj isn't obligatory. You can eat pork and the flesh of swine. I can make zina with my daughter. Understand? The level of severity and gravity is agreed upon. And that's not necessarily the same with this issue. All right? Let alone the fact that you have to be careful that you may tell someone that something's halal or haram or obligatory. That doesn't mean that your words are clear. Nor does it mean your words are convincing. Nor does it mean that you're a trustworthy person. Nor does it mean that the issue is agreed upon by all of the ulama. So it may be something that's clear, whether the scholars agree or disagree, but you yourself aren't an eloquent speaker. You're not presenting it clearly. Or the person has personal problems with you. I know you little shout out. I know you come and telling me I can't do this. No, get out of here. You understand? Vaping, a brother's vaping, right? You say vaping's haram, so on and so on and so forth. This is a real question. And many Muslims today are saying vaping's halal because the non-Muslims have made it halal. You can't vape. Vape is haram. Stop. Put that down. I don't necessarily believe you. Nor do I trust you. I don't want to hear anything from you because I know you be smoking weed. Not vaping, you be smoking blunts. We all know that. Now you gonna come, you get what I'm trying to say? And what he said, that vaping is haram, it doesn't mean that it's false. But it may be a personal issue with what? With the one saying it. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets and messengers from the best of the people. And he made the prophets and messengers those who don't just preach and don't practice. But he made the prophets and messengers act upon the knowledge first. And he made the prophets and the messengers in the best way. The way that's one less excuse for the people. How can his slave be a prophet and a messenger? What did Pharaoh say about Musa? He can barely what? La yakadu. You mean? He can barely speak, he's stuttering. What is Musa saying? Is it the truth or not, Pharaoh? Who cares whether he's stuttering or not? Is he telling you the truth? But he used that as an excuse. And different surahs, different ayats, Allah mentions about the prophets and the messengers that your followers are the lowest of people. The low base people of society, those are the ones who follow you. And it's no different here in the United States today. The people who follow this, the people who practice this, they're poor, they're convicts, they're jailbirds, they don't have no money, they're only of this one race. If this Islam was true, if this dawah, if this was true, then why is your masjid so small and dirty and minuscule compared to our big centers built from the ground up? You guys cut the AC on in 2023. And we have what? Central AC. Right or wrong? You guys have to beg to raise money, blah, 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 blah. Our masjid got millions. Trust fund. Doctors, engineers, cardiologists. Those are the people on the board. Those are the people donating pledges every month. Thousands and thousands of dollars from one person. And your masjid, one brother gives $20, one brother gives $50, one brother gives $100 at best. So that's a proof that your understanding of Islam and your practice of Islam and the Sunnah, blah, 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 blah. You guys get the understanding or not? So that was how those people looked. The people who follow you are the lowest of people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tried, He made and He decreed for the people to have one less what? Excuse. Can't say nothing about the Prophet's background. You can't say nothing about his lineage. You can't say nothing about this and that. He comes from this. So it's nothing that you can say to attack him. So that's one less excuse for you to do what? Listen to the truth. But the human being we know isn't like that. The human being is going to look at status. He's going to look at the color of skin. He's going to look at followers. He's going to look at wealth. And that's going to be his determination of truth or falsehood. 9 out of 10 of us are like that, whether you realize it or not. And opposite is opposite as well. If you want to get technical and deep, let's just be real. If I say this, I say that, but if I was from another country, if I had another background, if I had another lineage, if I talk with this accent, if I was foreign, Sheikh, we'd be on their hands and knees literally kissing my feet. But I'm a Negro from West Philly. I'd rather he's this, he's getting certain questions. Oh, he's doing this, he said this, I stuck for the law. But if it was another brother with a different background, they wouldn't say that. That's the haqq. That's how things are, unfortunately, except for the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants success, tawfiq. And alhamdulillah, you can see that. Different people, they'll break the race barrier. They'll break the wealth barrier. I don't care what this sheikh look like, I don't care. What he said is the truth. Versus, no, he's not from this background, his skin isn't this fit. Nope, sorry. It's reality. And even among the people who supposedly follow one way, one dawah, look at the structure and the hierarchy. I don't want to open up a can of worms, but just look how many people have been refuted and what's their race and background. Over the years, from the 90s, early 2000s on, just look, I challenge you right now to look at all of the different du'ats and graduates that have been refuted and thrown off. I guarantee you're going to find a consistent theme of their background. But other brothers who haven't studied, who didn't graduate, who are of this background or this race or this complexion, you won't find them being refuted. And in many countries, I won't mention names, even though I can, you'll find a hierarchy, even though the person's a jahil, fool, ignoramus, doesn't know anything, he's the leader. But the one who did go study and did learn, because he's black, he won't be the leader. He'll be second place at best. And don't take this from me, a liar, a deviant. Just look And I guarantee you'll find what I'm saying. And it's not an accident. So therefore, don't think just because a person doesn't listen to you or follow what you're saying, they're rejecting the truth. But they may not like you, unfortunately. Or you may not be clear enough. Let alone if the issue is an issue of khilaf among the ulama. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're a kafir because they don't take your interpretation or your understanding or your sheikh. Alright? So be very careful with regards to that. Tfaddal.
K8 Manchester, UK. We found one of the Salaf saying something which we haven't found in the Hadith about matters of the unseen. What is our belief with regards to this? If the chain is authentic.
Jazakallah khairan. When one of the Salaf Salih, the righteous predecessors, says something about the unseen, and what they say isn't found in a hadith, what is our position about this or regarding this? A very good question. And of course, it depends. It depends on what was said. In general, the unseen is established by Quran and Hadith. In general, that's the general rule. Nothing else. Quran and Hadith, that establishes our belief in the unseen. The grave, the angels, hellfire, etc. However, some scholars say that certain statements in light of the ayat and the hadiths, as further explanations, shedding further light on them, at least, at worst, it can be mentioned. There's nothing wrong with mentioning it. Abdullah ibn Abbas said this. This student, as we just read, he said this about Jahannam, about the grave, about so on and so forth. And it doesn't go against the text. It doesn't clash with the text. They say at worst it can be what? Mentioned. It can be mentioned. Let alone, sometimes these different statements and these different interpretations of the Salaf Salih, oftentimes they fill in the gaps. Right? Allah tells us about a thing, maybe inexplicitly. The Prophet ﷺ tells us about this stage. And this tabi'i or this sahabi comes along and says, this will happen to the kafir. And the kafir will call out, so on and so on and so forth. So with regards to the tafsir, then of course the first source of tafsir is the Quran. And if we don't find that which is sufficient, then we look at the hadiths. And if it's nothing in our hadith, we look at the statements of the Sahaba and then the Tabi'een. And from the tafsir, without any doubt, is ghaib. One of the most consistent themes of the Quran is the unseen, right? So it depends on what is said, who's saying it, and it depends on the nature of the statement. And sometimes there are statements from some of these Tabi'een, some of the Salaf, which other scholars will say, no, it is clashing, etc. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
EA, Valencia, France. Please, Sheikh, give us a reminder regarding sports like MMA or similar that involve having an aura uncovered. These sports generate more and more hype in the Muslim community.
So questions coming from France regarding sports that include haram elements, whether it's the outer being exposed or other than that, hidden in the face, alcohol, whatever, haram elements, mukhalafat, haram elements. Well, the answer to the question is in the question. If the sport includes something haram or at least disliked, it should be shunned. The supporting of it, the watching of it, etc. And of course, the sports are a big fitna. Let's keep it real. If I sat here in front of you and said that I don't like sports, I never watched sports, I wasn't raised in a sports town, I'll be a liar. That's a fact. Sports is a fitna. It always has been, always will be. In Philly, you have the Flyers, you have the Phillies, you have the Eagles, you have the Sixers, you have boxing, so many different types of sports, athletes, champions. It's a fitna. It's reality. But it doesn't mean that I or you can justify what's haram and justify what's disliked, whether it's haram or disliked. If the odor is being exposed, if it's homosexuality involved, etc., it is what it is, right? Alcohol being promoted, naked women being promoted, some homo agenda being promoted, whatever, it is what it is. And you ought to stay away from it and shun it and condemn it. If you have a personal weakness, you watch it, but don't necessarily justify it or promote it for others, right? And of course, some sports are worse than others. with regards to the harm. Forget your odor being exposed. The harm that it does to your body, the damage that football or boxing or MMA or whatever does to your body. Last but not least, I will say this. Many people, they pick on different sports. That's a fact. They pick on different sports. And that also goes back to racism and prejudice. You know, this is a bad, evil sport, but this is okay. You know, soccer is, World Cup. But MMA is haram, but soccer is all right. Jews, Christians on your team, you praying with them, right? Your odor being exposed, you wasting time, you're not praying. Women in the stadium with their faces painted, cheering for their countries, promoting clear, blatant nationalism. Jahiliyyah. Who says something about that? Who talks about the World Cup? Or the World Cup being in Qatar and this and that? Who said anything about that? You hear any fatwas, this, that, right? You don't. But an American sport, an urban sport, oh, it's haram, this is disrespectful, this is odor, of course. But from another culture, another part of the world, it's shh. So that's clearly inconsistency. So many people, they shun different sports because of this type of prejudice, like clothes. Somebody walks in here with dreadlocks. They say, A'udhu billah, astaghfirullah, the shaitan is on your head. The shaitan is in your dreads. You can't make wudu, you can't make ghusl. This is jahiliyyah. Or someone come in with skin tight, 3-piece suit on, green shaven face. Who would say something about it? It's a reality. It's real. Or like I said, we're selling drugs. But the riba, that's a different story. So we have to take a stance against haram, whoever it is, and whoever's practicing it. All right? So different sports have different elements. Some sports are worse than others. And I think, and Allah knows best, one of the worst things about sports, worse than the odor being exposed, hidden in the face, is the worship of sports and of sports heroes and athletes. People worship them. If this kafir, mushrik, soccer player or football player walked into the masjid, how many of our kids would jump up and run? This basketball player, this quarterback, this athlete, they worship them. They love them, they know them, they're connected and attached to them. The fanaticism connected to sports. They have more wala and bara for sports and athletes than for Allah and His Messenger. That's a fact. And if you want to know the state of children, then just go to the basketball court. All of the different masjids that I've been to, the centers. Kids love basketball more than things from the deen. Prayer, not important. Salat, fasting, not important. Obeying your parents, memorizing the Quran, not important. But basketball. And look at the ego trips and the pride and the lying, and they're heartbroken when their team loses or when they lose. It's much more than just an inflated ball of rubber. Trust me, it's deeper than that. The kafir's name being on your back. It's deeper than that. And there are other things involved in that. And the moment you want to realize that it's deeper than just a game, look what happens when someone dares to say something against their agenda. Colin Kaepernick. Was he right for doing that? Was he wrong? Did that make any sense? Did you change anything? Does that make any sense? I'm not going to... Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. Others, whether they're Muslim or other than Muslim players and athletes who are activists, who stood up for what they believed in or didn't stand up. And they said, I'm not standing up for the anthem. I'm not doing this. America, that's no problem. I admire their courage. I admire them doing what they feel is right. Do I agree with them? Do I think that makes any sense? You're getting paid by an establishment, supported by an establishment, but that's a different story. The moral of the story is the moment they did something that goes against what they want, look how they punished them. Look how they blackballed them. Just like that. Talent, skill means nothing. Just like that. They will punish you, starve you to death, literally, for you doing something that goes against what they want. Proving that sports are much more than what? It's much more than just entertainment. It's deeper than that. It's an aqidah behind it, a movement. So if our children, if they don't learn these things, and if they're not warned from these things, and if we miss salats because of MMA, if we love these kafir, mushrikun more than the Muslims, gambling, whatever, then that's a mushkila, whatever the sport, what? Maybe. And of course, everything I said ain't got nothing to do with the Eagles. All right? They're outside of that ruling. Khalifa? The Phillies, the Eagles ain't got nothing to do with that. Maybe the Phillies, maybe the Flyers, maybe the Sixers, but not the what? Not the Eagles. I'm not gonna allow no disrespect. Next question, Sheikh.
how to interact and help out those close to you that aren't close or familiar with the Quran or its meaning, even though they are Muslim.
You gotta give them dawah. Teach them things, give them small pieces and small bites. Piece by piece, step by step. Be gentle. And we live in a secular world, and most of us as Muslims, unfortunately, we're affected by the secularism. We're affected by the dunya. So give them dawah through gentleness, through kindness, and don't give them too much all at once. If they reject you, if they say bad things, if they can't see that far, be patient with them. Be kind. Tafadhal.
T.A. Bronx, New York. Can you explain what makes a hadith munkar?
Can you explain what makes a hadith munkar? طيب. The general meaning of munkar, linguistically and technically, is an unacceptable hadith. A hadith that is unacceptable, it can't be accepted. It's just rejected. It's too weak. Whether it's the chain, a narrator in the chain, whether it's the meaning, munkar. It's munkar. It can't be accepted. As far as what other scholars or different scholars say about munkar, then that's a very long discussion. The earlier scholars, and the mutaqaddimin, and the later scholars, the fuqaha, and the mutaakhirin, etc., they use the word munkar in different ways. Munkar could mean a hadith that has a narrator who's unknown. Munkar could mean a hadith whose metin is rejected, is a foul meaning that goes against authentic text. Munkar could mean a hadith narrated by a weak narrator that clashes with a hadith narrated by a sound narrator. And munkar could also mean, and the kathirin min al-mutaqaddimin, is the narration which الذي تفرد فيه الراوي تفردا غير مقبول. He's the only one mentioned in this hadith, and he isn't strong enough. A sheikh has 20 students. He's well known. The students, they desire his hadith, and only one narrator from them mentions that this sheikh said this from this one, from this sahabi. Where are the rest of his students at? Where are the top ones? Martial artists. All right? He has a dojo. He's been teaching for 20, 30 years. He has generations of students. And then someone from the fourth generation of students who wasn't that strong, wasn't that talented, he wasn't a local, he came from out of town, he says, oh, our sensei, he said do this move and do that move. And this is the top move. But the students from 20 years ago, they said, we never heard that. The second generation student says, we never ever saw them doing that. And we were there from the Sheikh City, we were in the dojo day and night. And this one guy comes along who was in the dojo for a couple of months, a year or two. He would travel from a different state. He says, yeah, something's off. Where are the rest of the students at? The front row students. So the different usages of the term munkar, whether it's al-hadith al-fard, al-hadith al-mukhalif, or a hadith which is fabricated and batil, could also be called munkar. I would advise you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best, to check out the videos and the books that we have explained on hadith science. Several books of hadith terminology we've explained, and they are free on the channel. Nukhbat al-Fikr, Tadhkira, Bayquniya, Taysir Mustalah al-Hadith. You can get all of those lectures for free, and you can find a detailed discussion of these terms. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should knows best. We'll take this, we'll make this our last question, inshallah. Fadal.
AA, London. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Mufti. How should one go about advising or discussing Allah's attributes with one of your mu'allims who you love and taught you the Quran for years as an authority, inshallah ta'ala, or should he refrain as he in many ways is still a beginner?
Say the question one more time, please.
How should one go about advising or discussing Allah's attributes with your mu'allim, who you love and taught you the Quran for years? Should he refrain as he is in many ways still a beginner?
Right.
Should he talk as an authority?
Right. Our last question today, with regards to advising your teacher or correcting your teacher that has taught you many years regarding an issue which you may feel is wrong or incorrect about Allah's attributes.
Yeah, about Allah.
And what did he say about athari? The teacher's an athari,
Yeah.
or the student
The
basically?
student is
Tayyib. Well, in general, a student of knowledge is a student of knowledge, and a teacher is a teacher. We've explained in 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 2, to show the most respect possible, the utmost respect to your teacher, whoever or whatever that teacher is. If he or she is your teacher, you have to respect him. If your teacher's a kafir, if your teacher's this type of Muslim or that type of Muslim, if you're studying with that person, he's still your teacher. And if that person is your teacher, you are in debt to him. You owe him or her. And from the etiquette of seeking knowledge is to respect your teacher and to humble yourself for your teacher, even if you feel or know that they're wrong. But you're still my sheikh. And this is, I would say, one of the ugliest violations of the different people today, of the different dawah groups and sects. Okay, well, I'm talking about one group or several groups, in which someone is a beginner, rather a kafir. Just yesterday, you thought God was one of three. You thought Allah was one of three. You thought Isa was the son of Allah. Just yesterday, you took a shahada, you come in the masjid, this old guy, this sheikh, whatever, he taught you how to pray, he taught you how to clean yourself when you make use of the bathroom. He gave you your name, Abdul Aziz. He raised you in Islam. You gain a little more knowledge, or somebody pulls you to the side and say, you know Sheikh Naeem, you know he's a deviant, right? Yeah, he's this, he's that, he's not with us, he doesn't know scholar fulan, da 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 da. Just like that. And then the guy who was a non-Muslim a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Sheikh said, hey, how you doing, man? Alhamdulillah, you come to the masjid? Wa alaikum. Literally. Yeah, just like that. Wa alaikum. Or alaikum, no respect. All the respect everything they did from is now down the drain. And for argument's sake, let's say Sheikh Naeem, for argument's sake, is deviant. Or he has some mistakes and some incorrect practices. But how can you just forget and neglect everything that he did for you? He was Muslim since 1975. 2 weeks ago, you were a kafir. Now you have no respect for him. It's happened how many times in our communities? Too many times. Or a person was born Muslim, he's studying with you. Sheikh Mufti, please write me a letter of recommendation. Sheikh Mufti, can I travel with you to Maryland? Can I go to Philly with you? You know, a disciple. Then next thing you know, you see him a year later, whatever. No kalam for you, no speech. Talking bad about you or questioning you about stuff that you learned 10, 15 years ago when he was still a baby or a kafir. How does that work? How does that work? Wallahi, that's sick and perverse. And that has happened countless times in our communities. That's sick and perverse. Sheikh, can I speak with you in private? I would like to ask you something if you don't mind. Sheikh, you know I love you, right? You like my father. You're better than my father. You taught me the deen. But Sheikh, I heard you say something. Can you explain it to me, Sheikh? Or you may ask the question, Sheikh, could you tell me what's meant by this attribute? And maybe he forgot. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe he made a slip of a tongue. Maybe by you asking the question, he says, oh, let me check that for you. Versus, no, you're a deviant. You're going to the fire. You're a muftihadith. You're an innovator. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. So that's very evil. So even if and when you differ with your teacher, listen carefully. The way of the Salaf is if and when you differ with your teacher or your teacher makes a mistake, you still have to be respectful. And if you're disrespectful to your teacher, you're not following the way of the Salaf. The Salaf were people of respect. If they hated someone for Allah's sake, they loved one for Allah's sake, they were dignified people. They weren't just some type of low lives, rambunctious, reckless people causing destruction. Right? So when you differ with your teacher, show respect. And the scholars of Islam have mentioned is that you should never correct your teacher in public. You should never correct your teacher in an aggressive, engaging manner. Rather, you should ask your teacher a question. Yeah, Sheikh, can you please explain to me what is the position of the Salaf concerning Allah's attributes? Could you please, I know you explained, Sheikh, could you tell me what Ibn Abbas said about this verse concerning Allah's attributes? And he may say the same thing again, which is wrong. You ask him again, Sheikh, can you read that for us again, please? Can you explain that? Or in private, but you never ever correct. It's wrong. No, it's like this. As many ignorant fools do today, thinking that they're following the correct path. And they have been taught badly. They have been misguided. thinking that they're following Imam Ahmad, and that's their disrespectful behavior. All right? So therefore, if you feel that your teacher is wrong, advise him in private. Ask him a question in private with respect. Make an excuse for your teacher. And also, you have to look at the relationship that you have with your teacher. And we've explained this in 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 2. That's why we wrote these books, guys. To go back to those books, and that's why we explained the books for free. Go back and you learn how to be a student of knowledge. And in that book, we have a chapter called Going Back and Forth with Your Teacher. The hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu, and he kept asking the Prophet, the hadith of Abu Dharr, that he would go to paradise even if he steals and fornicates. And he went back with the Prophet over and over again. So if you have that type of relationship and dynamic with your teacher, that's a different story. Which you've been studying for a while, your teacher loves you, respects you, and you say, yeah, Sheikh, you go, that's different. Versus you being a beginner. How do you know this is the truth? How do you know this is correct about Allah's attributes? How do you know that? How do you know? Do you speak Arabic? Have you read the original text? And wallahi, I've seen ignorant people in my city, unfortunately Philadelphia and other cities, literally, I've seen them on twice. Someone who's an English-speaking reader refute someone who's fluent in Arabic about an issue. Not saying that the Arabic person is going to be right just because he speaks Arabic. I'm not saying that. But how in the HE double hockey sticks do you know what Sheikh Fulan said? And you're reading a translation. How do you know? And he's reading directly from the text. Qala Fulan, dot, 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 dot. You say, oh, the Sheikh didn't say that, but you know, different translations. You know, shut up. Literally, shut up. You don't know anything. Why are you talking? So that's topsy-turvy. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that from the signs of the hour, and تَلِدَ الْأَمَةُ رَبَّتَهَا, is for a slave girl to give birth to her master. And some scholars interpret this part of the hadith to mean is that towards the end of time, things will be topsy-turvy. Order will be lost. It will be chaos. The beginner student of knowledge will be criticizing, refuting, disrespecting the one that's been overseas for 10, 15 years. That's what? Topsy what? For sure. The player who's arguing and fighting with the offensive coordinator. The player could be right. Maybe the offensive coordinator did make a bad call. You ran, you were supposed to throw. No doubt. But I've been offensive coordinator for 30 years. You just got drafted to the NFL. You have to have some type of respect. I've been doing this, when my kids are older than you. Not meaning that I'm always right. Doesn't mean that. We're not saying that extreme, but there has to be some respect. Right? Someone's expertise. So this happened too many times. So therefore, advise your teacher in private. Give him nasiha. Make dua for your teacher. Be kind, be gentle, be humble. And if your teacher doesn't listen or doesn't agree, once again, like the music question, it doesn't mean that your teacher doesn't believe or is a deviant or doesn't follow the salaf, he isn't following Athar. He may not believe you. He may not understand what you're saying, or he may not be convinced. So if you can, maybe you can bring him some authentic evidence, some proof to show your teacher in private. But once again, how in the heck are you going to bring him that evidence when you are that's the stupidity involved. All right? You don't even speak the language. You don't read the books. You haven't studied that much. How do you know? So I would advise you to slow down, pump your brakes, and maybe you can get the information to your teacher to someone who's at least on his level, if not on a higher level, but not a setup. And that's the last thing I'll say. Many brothers, they do that. They think that setting someone up is advice. Bringing these brothers to beat up and jump and roll on you, that's nasiha. Me and you differ on an issue. I bring 10 brothers. Oh, we want to sit down and talk with you. That's not sitting down and talking. That's an inquisition. That's a trial. You're on trial for heresy. And we've made our mind up about you already. We're going to hang you, burn you on a stake. It's happened too many times. So advice is one thing. And read the book of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, rahimahullah ta'ala, al-farqu bayna al-nasihati wa-ta'yir. The difference between advising someone and scandalizing someone. Trying to embarrass someone. And many of the Salaf, they would say, Man hafara liya akhihi hufratan lam yamut hatta yaqa fiha. Whoever digs a ditch for his brother won't die until he himself falls into that ditch. So advising someone is one thing. We respectfully differing on the thing is what? Is one thing. Trying to embarrass someone, being disrespectful to your teacher is what? It's totally different. So many people, they've confused those things. We'll stop here. Jazakumullah khairan. Hayakallah ibn Victor. Inshallah, hopefully the answer to your question was mentioned already. Of course, the gambling and the other things in the sports culture. Jazakumullah khairan. Anybody seen Shams this morning? You seen Shams? Where is he? MIA or KIA? KIA. Last check, huh? Where you at, Shams? I don't see you, man. He's working? You sure about that?
Yeah.
You my sheikh, but I disagree with you. Stop for a while. I'm asking you. La.
Yeah, I got a question.
I think I won in front of you. Fadl. We try to make an excuse for Shams, but the rules is the rules.
It was Bahara to be something.
Buhayra, no rules. No holds barred. Still cage match. Top turnbuckle. Fadl.
A question arose about severing ties with your family. Can you shed light on the prohibition and expound on removing it from the heart versus just emitting it from the lips where your actions reflex what's in the heart?
So yeah. Got some comments here talking about the Eagles and the Commanders, huh? You guys Commanders fans? Local? I know many people, they refuse to use that term. They say there's no such thing as Commanders. I'm with the Salaf. They the Redskins to me. And it's very interesting. I read an article once, if not, I think a few articles, some years ago, about the differences among the indigenous people, whether you call them Native American or Native Indians or Indians, about those different teams that have those names and titles. The Braves, Redskins, Cleveland Indians, Chicago Blackhawks, right? Kansas City Chiefs. And I read these articles, and it was saying that some of them, of course, were clearly offended and felt disrespected. How in the heck is a team named the Redskins with a picture of a red-skinned man? Would it be the team, the Washington Jews, the Washington Mix, the Washington Niggers, the Washington Kikes, the Washington this and that? Would you have a team, the Washington Chinks, the Washington Gooks? Would you have a team called that? With a picture of a yellow man or a man with a big long nose or this or that? So many of them, they felt disrespected by that. And there were others who said, rather on the opposite, on the contrary, we don't feel disrespected. We feel honored that they would name their team after us and our civilization. The Chiefs, the Braves. And many of them said even the Redskins is not offensive. If you say we have Redskin, the picture or the icon on the helmet isn't a caricature. It's not some funny looking, goofy looking, really big nose, big teeth type of Indian. It's clearly some type of respectful man on the helmet. And our bravery, our resilience, our toughness is represented through that name. Because all of those teams, or most of the teams, not all of them, are named after some type of symbolic thing. The Philadelphia Eagles, an eagle, strong, powerful, fierce, free, fearless, right? The Atlanta Falcons, right? You get the point I'm trying to make? And of course, it was a third group that said some names are offensive, some icons and logos are offensive, and others aren't. Such as the Cleveland Indians. And obviously, you look at their logo, their mascot, and if you look at the older ones, it's even worse. Clearly disrespectful. Some happy-go-lucky, jolly Indian with a big, gigantic smile and a big, huge nose with a red face. The Washington Redskins, his face looks like some native people's complexion. Dark, whether you call them red, black, white, it's nothing disrespectful. The feathers in the hair, you get what I'm trying to say? But the Cleveland Indians is some funny, dancing, simple-minded Indian guy whose face is literally the color red. Obviously, that's a word of difference. Whether you like the Redskins name or not. The Redskins versus the Cleveland Indians. I'm just trying to show you an example. You get what I'm saying? There's a clear difference. This is clearly disrespectful. And one may say that the Washington is not disrespectful. Let alone the Braves, the Chiefs. So some of them, they said, we're honored by that. That they would name us after us for our bravery on the battlefield. And the Indians, the natives, the indigenous people were known for their what? Fearless to walk into gunfire, cannon fire. It's a fact. So everything isn't so simple, right? And of course, there are other teams such as the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame, right? They weren't offended by that. I didn't read anybody speaking out against. Some were, but they didn't change it. The Boston Celtics. So many people, whether it's Black Lives Matter or different movements, whatever, once again, not all, but they pick and choose what they want to stand up for. Lucky Charms, a box of cereal, a leprechaun. Is that not a stereotype against Irish people? Some short, evil devil with a pot of gold? Is that not a stereotype? Do you think every Irish person is pleased with seeing that? Once again, a big, stupid, dumb smile on a box with Lucky Charms pot of gold? It's disrespectful. But no one is standing up or fighting against that. Right? Lucky Charms, blackface, whatever, Redskins, where's the vigilance for that? Boston Celtics, right? Let alone, if I'm not mistaken, there's it's somewhere in this area, going up north, 95 north, I saw a sign once said Indian Head Road, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Has that been changed? No, that ain't Philly shake. That ain't even Philly. We never had those types of names. Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. No, we never was into that. But you get the point I'm trying to make, right? Is that those people, you should stand up for anything that's considered disrespectful and derogatory to any race. And we all know the Aesop's fables. The lion came to the bull, I think it was a red bull or a black bull, said, hey, why don't you help me get this white bull?